I think often people think about poverty as the absence of money or affluence, and I think it's actually the absence of hope. There are systems and structures, there are circumstances and other things that contribute to people being in poverty and remaining in poverty. But mindset, I think, plays a lot into it, particularly in the regional sense, where it's not an individual person in poverty, but actually communities or counties. This sense of sort of like, well, nothing's ever going to change here. Like there's as if like there's nothing anybody can do. We think about central and southern Appalachia as places that have been made poor by extraction, and they continue poor due to a lack of investment. You know, about 85% of most persistent poverty in this country lies in 5 or so rural parts of the country. So Appalachia for certain, but the Delta and the Deep South, along the Texas-Mexico border, Indian country, and then in that Central Valley of California that represents, I think, mostly farm worker. These seem to be these are the places. Poverty is at scale. Fahe is a community development financial institution, which is a designation you get from the Department of Treasury. We made a shift about 20 years ago in our approach where we did build a mortgage platform. We also run a loan fund, making product and service available to our members. And then the last big sort of bucket of things we do, we turnkey federal programs for local communities. Most of those are through HUD, and some of that's with USDA. Our premise is that people who are without strong income, as a lot of people would define as poor, they're not different than everybody else. I think that message gets put to folks, and then they see themselves somehow as, I'm a broken person in a broken system in a broken part of the country. You can't build much off of that mindset. And so we wanted to create a platform that takes the best of what we can from the mainstream financial service and put the cookies on the low shelf, if you will. Can we underwrite in a way that brings that rate down to what somebody can afford, rather than treat people as different because of their income, actually making the same products and services available to them? We had somebody who was on our staff who had grown up in one of the poor counties near Berea, Kentucky. I think her words were pretty close to this. She was like, I remember the summer we got our homes, and my parents had never owned anything. And there was no talk of college. There was no talk of the future, actually. Everything was very, how will we put food on the table today? How will we get to tomorrow? But there was no longer view of life than that. When we hired her, not knowing this story, she said, my folks were not given a home. They were given the opportunity to pay for something they could afford to own, which is different, right? That comes with dignity. And she said, and it made us feel powerful. And so I didn't just finish high school. She said, my sister and I both went to college, and that had never been on the table. What would be the point when it's clear that everywhere around me, the system proves that there'd be no reason to try? And so then here she was, a mortgage officer for us. It really mattered to her that she was involved in things that could do that for other folks. So we formed alliance with the other regions of persistent poverty. And I think we just need more folks to take the time to understand, and also to put it on their list of priorities that we need each other, right? Like, you just think about like the amount of division in our country these days. It's not a small thing for Black and brown and Native and white all coming together to say, we're not the same, but we have a lot of the same issue, and we should be coming together with a common voice about what our places and people need. It's a picture, I think, of our country, I think that we should aspire to. I think at the end of the day, regular people, citizens, are the ones who get stuff done. You might have to start by thinking about, that neighborhood in the community in which you already live. I think these are the things that matter. I want to believe that we can still be the kind of country that believes people can succeed if they have the right tools, and that they're given an honest opportunity.